Shallow, how many flights are to be covered by this new rule, the no vax, no ride policy? And are there other point to point flights, like, for example, say flights from Cebu to other locations, which are expected to follow suit?
All right, we operate around 80 round trip flights per day for our domestic sector. So that would be 80 flights a day. So these are all domestic flights, Jester. So these are covered by the no fly, no vaccine policy. And with regards to your question, does it cover certain point to point routes, like let's say from our other hubs to the intra domestic routes? No, like Cebu to other parts of the Philippines, that's not covered. What is covered by the policy domestically would be our routes emanating from Manila and returning to Manila, Chester.
Ma'am, can you clarify what about international travel?
Okay, Danny, international travel that is covered by another set of rules and protocols. It is covered by the new IATF regulation. So if you are coming from a green country, you can still fly to the Philippines, whether you are vaccinated or unvaccinated. What is important is that you show a negative RT-PCR test taken 48 hours before your flight to Manila. And that is the same regulation for if a passenger is coming from a red country, he or she can still fly to Manila for as long as the passenger has a negative RT-PCR test taken 48 hours before his or her flight to Manila. So we have to make it very clear that the no vax, no fly covers only domestic. And for the international services, we go by the IATF regulation, which has specific rules for vaccinated and unvaccinated. But I would like to stress that effective January 16, there is a special protocol for eligible foreigners arriving in the Philippines. When you say eligible foreigners, these are members of humanitarian mission, diplomatic corps, and foreign spouses of Filipino nationals. These are eligible. And of course, foreign nationals who have permanent resident visas to the Philippines. And of course, those with work visas, these are the foreigners and who can arrive in the Philippines. They must be fully vaccinated, and that rule took effect last January 16. So I know there's a lot on everyone's plate to memorize and to be
Correct.
very aware of all of these nuances cutting across all forms of travel.
Basta magpabakuna is your main point. It actually
Yes, magpabakuna.
eases things for everyone. Ma'am, you've mentioned already exemptions. Apart from diplomatic, etc., there's also medical conditions preventing some people to be vaccinated. There's also possibly some people that are not vaccinated but need to provide essential goods and services. Are these accepted? How do you verify these? To what extent can you have essential goods and services traveling with people who are not vaccinated?
Yes, you're right, Danny. Part of the exemption would be unvaccinated passengers or partially vaccinated passengers who have to travel for essential reasons, such as medical emergency, to undertake a medical procedure. And what is the proof? That would be a medical certificate issued by the passenger's doctor and verified, of course, by Philippine Airlines. And as you mentioned, another exemption would be travelers who are partially vaccinated or totally unvaccinated who have to procure goods and services. For example, if you and Jess, you have to fly, let's say, to a certain province because you have to procure essential goods and services for your business, then you have to procure a permit from your own local government unit, your barangay, that is the barangay special permit. So that is the proof that you are going to undertake essential travel for the procurement of vital goods and services. And may I add, Jester and Danny, halimbawa, yung ating kasambahay, yung mga yaya, okay, nagbakasyon sa probinsya at and they have to return to Manila, kailangan nila magpakita ng letter mula sa kanilang mga amo. And of course, their ID. So this is another form of essential travel. For example, if a minor individual, a minor child, let's say younger than 18 years old, but physically able to travel alone because that's allowed in the airline industry, unaccompanied minors, for as long as they're physically able to travel alone, for as long as they can show proof that their place of residence is NCR or Manila, then they will be allowed to travel
Okay.
back to Manila.
Ma'am, what if for those na ayaw talaga magpabakuna and have booked their flights and there wasn't this policy before and now they won't be allowed to travel, what are the options for them? Can they refund? Are they, eligible for refunds or I don't know, rebooking in the future if they do decide to get the vaccine?
Okay, if they're unvaccinated and they're anti-vaxxers. So unfortunately, if they had previously booked before the implementation of this policy, by the way, it started yesterday, January 17, and they bought a ticket before this date, then they really have to have themselves vaccinated in order to take that flight, especially if the flight is for domestic travel and they're traveling as domestic tourists. That is the only way, unless they can find a compelling reason for Philippine Airlines to allow them. If, let's say, they have those tickets, they're unvaxxed, but they have to have a medical emergency in a domestic destination, then that is again supported by the rules I mentioned a while ago, the medical certificate. But if it's for domestic travel, kagaya ng sinabi niyo, magpabakuna na lang, hindi ba? Because at least you have more flexibility as a traveler.
But will
Okay.
they be refunded, ma'am, if they don't want? They just simply say, okay, ayoko
Okay.
na lang.
Pwedeng sa travel
All right.
fund
So
in
what?
the future.
Yes, yes. Okay, Jesse and Danny, what are their options? They may rebook within 60 days from their original flight date, and they may reroute, they may refund, or to give them more flexibility, we have a product called travel credits. They can convert the full cost of their ticket, the base fare of their ticket, into travel credits, and they can utilize the cost of their ticket within 1 year from the date of issuance. So that gives them more flexibility, especially if their travel is not time bound. If it's a vacation that they can postpone, it's not time bound. You're not attending a family gathering or binyag or kasal na talagang time bound. So these are the options available to our passengers who are affected by this regulation.